Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Live from Indianapolis. Delaney, your last day on the road. You ready to come home?
You know, I'm ready to be home, but I'm sad that I won't get to see the rest of this case through. It's been a wonderful experience. I'm so thankful for it.
Good, good. And Lance, good to see you. We have a ton of information from SBA. But let's start with 504, and we'll get to Delaney and all that coverage in a second in terms of what's happening with the trial. Big news from SBA. They released yesterday, this morning, guidelines, PowerPoints, IFRs. They released everything on how to refinance a 504 SBA loan. And 2/3 of our people say, Lance, they're going to do it.
Well, not only can you refinance a 504 with a 504, you can refinance a 7A with a 504.
Right. In a USDA, you can refinance anything. I just glanced at it. One of the benefits, though, you got to make sure it's the 10% reduction in loan payment, Lance. I know there's a lot of other things going on with that, but that one popped out at me. So that's interesting.
You would not want, Bob, if you didn't have a 10% reduction in the payment, you wouldn't want to go through a 504 loan process. So that's, I think that, the people that look at doing this are the people that did a 504 loan 3, 4, 5 years ago when the debentures were basically double the rate they are today. There's going to be substantial savings there.
Speaking of rates doubling or being halved, what is the debenture rate today? See, Lance, you and I work well together. You gave me a nice segue.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a smart crowd. 92% nailed it, Lance.
Yeah, that's an incredible interest rate, especially when you consider it's a 25-year fixed rate. And this helps you to be competitive with other lenders on commercial real estate.
You're setting the field. You're setting the field. Yeah. So that's the reason why we want to do this for our borrowers. It's a great product for that. And if you do the first, there is a little bit of a premium when you sell that to the secondary market. Not as much as 7A, but you can get a little bit of a premium for that. Finally, the 504 refinance rate is higher than the 504 regular debenture rate of 2.8% we just discussed. True.
Most everybody got it. The rate on refinance on or 504 debenture, the rate on refinance is slightly higher than
about 50 basis points. I think it's the rate is 2 or no, maybe 5. I don't know. It's higher, but it's slightly higher.
Yeah, slightly higher, not significant.
Yeah, it's not 50 basis points. I was wrong. This one maybe, but it is a little bit higher, just so you know. And what's difficult, of course, is when you're quoting interest rates, you can't quote an exact rate because we don't know what the rate is until it goes to market. But you can quote what they're in July. Lance, I don't see rates creeping up too high in the 504. Remember, what determines the rate is the appetite of that secondary investor of how much they want it. Right now, there is more demand than supply, which is driving up a little premium and driving down interest rates, right, Lance?
Absolutely, and the rate has hovered in the 2.7 to 3.0 range. So, it's not moved a whole lot. It stayed a little below 3% for most of the last year.
Well, the good news is we had scheduled this webinar back in March, and then we put it on hiatus because we knew the regs were going to change within 2 weeks. So, so here we are in August. The regs have changed, so Lance is going to dust off that original March power webinar, and we're obviously updated with everything we have here. Lance, you're going to go through all this stuff and make it nice and easy, put everything in context for us to understand, correct?
Absolutely. Want to give you enough information so as a participant bank you can jump in and do some of these refis with the 504 program.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nuance. The COVID factors are still in play. We can talk about nonprofits, etc. And this is not your father's 504 loan program. There are significant changes that are good. It gives you a good asset for the bank, and it's a great product for Main Street, Lance.
Ironically, Bob, you said your father's 504. I did a 504 for my dad back in about 1988.
Oh, did he pay it back?
He actually paid it back in 4 years. So
I knew he did. That's why I asked the question.
I always used to joke, Bob, my dad is the only living human being that I ever knew that actually paid an SBA loan off. Now, doesn't mean that people don't do that, but with 25-year financing, you can be in the industry a long time and never know somebody that fully pays one off.
All right, Delaney, what's going on in Indianapolis?
All right, so yesterday afternoon, evening, we had a new witness take the stand. His name is Brad Crawford. So he was originally a borrower, and he wanted to purchase a business in 2004. Matt and Carrie both helped him package and prepare this loan. And of course, as you know, in the loan authorization, you have to do an equity injection. So they were going to do a $50,000 equity injection, knowing he did not have this money in his bank account. Allegedly, of course, yes. So he wrote this check on the day the loan closed, and allegedly, they eventually used some loan proceeds to balance out his account in that check.
And he testified that they knew the check was going to bounce.
Yes, they did.
Well, how serious is that, Lance? Well, first question, Lance, is that a crime?
This is classic equity injection fraud.
The fraud?
You know,
is it
from
fraud? Go ahead.
you know, this is something with this trial that I struggle with, Bob. In the SOP, equity injection fraud, you know, is it a crime? Well, it will result in the guarantee not being paid.
Right. No,
I think it becomes a crime when you have a ongoing, continuing process where you do this over and over again. On an individual, you know, there are instances on an individual basis where if this happened in your institution, the end result would be SBA would deny the guarantee potentially.
And they may pull your 750 too.
Yeah, but I think this individual instance, you know, probably would not have gotten them in trouble, but it was a pattern of behavior that got them in trouble.
What they're saying is where the crime occurred is when they submitted that purchase demand kit to pay out the guarantee, and they alleged all that information was correct. So they reaffirmed that there was an equity injection when there wasn't. So that was the crime.
When Delaney and I talked about this last night, you know, equity injection, you have to have proof that the money exists for at least a couple of months.
According to the SOP, again, that's policy.
And it sounds to me like this money didn't exist at all until the loan dispersed. And
the loan dispersed and they covered the check. Yeah.
Yeah, equity injections is supposed to go in before any loan proceeds. So a lot of mistakes here.
Absolutely.
Karen, he was hired by BankServe. What did he do for BankServe?
So he was in sales and marketing. He worked there for a few years. He never necessarily climbed very high up the scale, but yes, he did work for them for a couple of years. He has a personal connection to one of the defendants.
Okay. Very good. And next up is Stacy Allen. She was a BankServe employee. Tell us about Stacy and what she said.
Yeah, so she is our witness today. She started at BankServe doing liquidation and eventually worked her way to being a relationships manager, just like Nicole. And when she started, Nicole got her this job, and she had no prior experience, no training, nothing of that sort. She did read the SOP, but her and every other employee at BankServe were told that they needed to report to Kelly. They needed to ask her questions only. This is what she testified. They were not supposed to ask other people questions. And while they may not have a formal write-up, it was very much not accepted, and you would get in some trouble. And not only that, Kelly was copied on every single email every employee sent, and that's what she testified. She even referred to Kelly as a walking SOP. So I think it's very interesting that they're claiming or all of these defendants weren't up to date and didn't necessarily have all the training necessary.
Give us a little atmosphere. What was the operation like? What did Stacy say the office, how did the office operate?
So it was very high stress, and this was common for a lot of employees. They would work anywhere from 40 to 70-hour weeks. It was common to hear yelling, slam doors, a lot of stress. It was just constantly stressful. And even in all of the opening statements, almost every attorney described this company as a pressure-cooked environment. It was very clear that in their attempt to expand and become the biggest LSP in the country, it was just a tough environment.
Lance, is backdating a financial document, a crime?
Well, you shouldn't be backdating documents.
Well, we know that you should, but is it a crime?
Technically, yes. Here's something I always tell people, like on putting together a purchase demand kit, there are a number of documents that you can recreate.
Right.
But when there is a signature and a date, the date needs to be today's.
Yeah.
Not 6 years ago.
Right.
And SBA and Bob, SBA will accept those documents.
Right.
You say, hey, look, we lost it, but we're recreating it, and they're signing it now.
And we're signing it as of today's date.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the backdating. What did Stacy testify?
Well, backdating was very common for her and every employee. So while one or two instances may not be a big deal, it seemed like this was happening all the time. She didn't even know it was wrong or incorrect until years later. Again, this was all under the guidance of Kelly, supposedly. They were also kind of pushing some of the blame on the banks a little bit, claiming that, they weren't doing the paperwork. But of course, they were recommended to use blue ink because they knew that if you're signing a date, if you're putting a signature, black ink can very easily be copied onto other documents. And again, it allegedly is a common theme to do that there.
Talk more about the relationship with the bank. What did she say? It says that she said the bank was supposed to do this, and of course the bank is going to say, well, the LSP was supposed to do it. Talk a little bit more about what she testified.
Well, she testified it was a lot of their responsibility, and the bank was not providing proper documentation regarding, credit history, financial health, and, I guess there's only so much BankServe can do, as she says.
How do you feel about that testimony, Lance?
Well, that's why there actually are some rules in the SOP about an LSP participant-lender relationship.
Now the rules are clear. Back then,
back when all this occurred, there really wasn't rules. There was not the SOP statement that the bank needs to be able to originate, service, liquidate the loans if they're going to have a relationship with the LSP. But it typically, you would want a bank that had enough understanding of SBA that when they saw problems with documents, they would know, hey, that's not right. We need to stop. And that appears to have not been the case here. It sounds like the bank was grabbing a few pieces of information and handing it over to BankServe and saying, run with this.
Right.
And she testified in many of the situations, if there was a problem and SBA noticed, they would be reporting to the bank first, not BankServe.
Interesting. By the way, we are not criticizing BankServe for hiring people with no experience. I have no issue with that because you sometimes you hire people out of college or you hire people with no experience and you train them.
Yeah.
you're looking at Exhibit A right in front of us there with Delaney. So that was I just want you to know that I am fully on board of hiring people without experience, but you got to train them, Lance.
Well, and that's exactly true. And in the comments in the trial saying training was not available, well, maybe SBA was not providing training, but we were, and Nagel was, and Mid-America Lenders Conference, and Flagel, and America East, and all the conferences were providing training. So there was some training out there.
And Carrie did training for us. So she actually did one of our webinars. Anyway.
I will give them a little bit of credit in saying it took them a very long time, but she testified around 2013 or 2014, they finally started providing more or training more often. So
yeah, and they had, I know, because I went out there once. I went out there, they had a day-long training. I gave a presentation. Lance, it was interesting. We did a video feed. We had someone from it, I believe it was Jean Hewlett from SBA. We brought her, we had her live on video. We also had Chris Hearn live on the video, and there was someone else. So that's why, Lance, we'll wrap this up. You and I are both conflicted on this. I mean, if you're,
it's hard.
It's ruined her it's ruined her. It's ruined a lot of people, and we know these people, and it's. There's certainly no gloating, and it's a sad situation.
Well, it hurts my feelings, Bob, in a way. You know, this is somebody I know, just
Right.
like you, somebody I've trained with, somebody I've spent time with, and you know, I know there are people out there that know Carrie and her crew a lot better than I do,
Right.
but you know, you don't want to see this for anybody involved in the SBA lending program. Whether it be a participant lender, LSP, SBA employee, you don't want to see this. So
no, you don't want to see it, and that's and the
right.
reason we're focusing on this is let's learn from her mistakes and let's not repeat them.
Well, and when I hear a story of Brad Sloan where he had no money in the bank, wrote his equity injection check, and then they deposited the money to cover it, everybody knows that's wrong.
Right.
Nobody on this call, nobody who's been in they all know that's wrong.
Right. And like you said, that definitely voids the guarantee. And then with the problem or the crime occurs is when they say, hey, they were eligible. Let's go. Yeah, let's go to this question from Raymond. Excuse me. Lance, you deal with the question while I stop choking.
Well, the forgiveness portal, direct forgiveness portal, and I have not exactly, because SBA's done some training, there's going to be a platform, or there's going to be a link where we go in and look at forgiveness decisions. I've been told by SBA that we'll be able to prove multiples, which is a good thing, because if we have to go in and prove each one individually, it's still going to be quite a job. But just because SBA is collecting it and making a decision on it, we as a participant bank will still have to go in and also approve it, because that's in the IFRs related to PPP forgiveness.
Very good. So that's excellent. Raymond, excellent question, Lance, and thank you for clarifying that. So Delaney, you're on the road coming home. Joseph, are you live? You're going to be stepping in and replacing Delaney on Monday?
Yeah, correct. I'll be there Sunday night and covering all next week. So looking forward to it.
Okay. So we will continue our coverage and we'll see what happens. Delaney, great job. Great job. We'll talk to you. Now, are you with us next week out of Arkansas, or are you?
yes, I will be.
You're with us. Okay, so we'll see you next week. Hey, everyone, have a nice weekend. We'll continue our coverage next week. Lance, thank you very much for your time. And thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great weekend.